Both New York teams are moving on to the championship series in the playoffs. Joe and I are going to break down both of those series and then talk about the two game fives that we have coming up between the Padres and the Dodgers and the Tigers and the Guardians before we break down how the teams that have already clinched a spot in the championship series would fare against whatever teams happen to win the game five. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 3 of the MLB Mojo podcast. It's a Babe Ruth episode, Joe, of the podcast. How are you?
I'm sorry, back-to-back Yankee episodes? Are
It
you
it might be 3 in a row with Lou Gehrig episode next.
are you a
So
Yankee shill? I get that they just eliminated your Royals from the postseason. All right, your odds-on favorite from the beginning of the year and the entire offseason. You're like, yeah, I'm all in on the Royals, baby. They just took them down. Unfortunate for you. I mean, it's a fun kind of like not like Cinderella story nearly as much as maybe like the Tigers on the opposite side there, but like in the same vein, it's like, yeah, this was a fun team to watch the entire year, even though they tormented our Seattle Mariners quite a bit. And we're kind of like, it's like Squidward up in his house watching SpongeBob and Patrick. Like we're the Mariners are Squidward, and then the Tigers and the Royals are SpongeBob and Patrick down having fun. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how it felt the last like 2 weeks, just getting to watch the Royals and Tigers play postseason baseball. I'm feeling okay. Like I'm feeling good. We got some exciting games, maybe not nearly as exciting as like some of the Padres Dodgers or even the Mets Phillies series, but I'd say Guardians Tigers living up to the hype enough. It was kind of boring baseball, 20 scoreless innings out of the Guardians offense for a bit there, but game 4 did not disappoint, but we do need to kind of we don't want to talk about them too much because we need to talk about teams that have clinched into the championship series. Both New York teams, Colton, have taken down their opponent and have locked up their chance. If they win another series, they're going to the World Series. Colton, do you want to start in the AL, freshly wrapped up Yankees Royals, or do you want to go to the NL and talk about your Mets, baby, all about the Mets, so the Mets go Mets?
let's talk about the Royals series because I need to rip the Band-Aid off, Joe.
Okay.
This is a series where it was pretty clear that who the offensive juggernaut was, and that is the Yankees, of course. The Royals still with Cole Reagans and then Michael Waka and Seth Lugo. Like on the pitching side of things, I had some faith in the Royals. I did, but it's just kind of hard to overcome the offense that is the Yankees. Aaron Judge had a big double in game 4 here, and for the Royals, they fell short. They went 56 and 106 in 2023. Nobody expected them to be there in the playoffs this year, and they found their way there. They played some really good baseball, and other than the 7 game losing streak they had leading up to the playoffs, and almost saw them fall out of it. It was they were a lot of fun to watch, and they have a bright future with Bobby Witt Jr. I think that I hope that Salvi can get in there again into the playoffs. I'd love to see him win another ring. But overall, this was a lot of fun to watch this series. I think the better team did win. I think that the Yankees are the team to beat in the American League, and they proved that in this series versus the Royals.
Yeah, they're the 1 seed coming out of the American League for a reason. You talked about the Royals' 7 game losing streak kind of leading into the playoffs, like scuffling. And they happened to face another team that was scuffling in the Baltimore Orioles in the wild card round. And you're really kind of looking to this division series, like how will the Royals answer the Yankees offense? And in game 1, I mean, it was back and forth. It was a 6-5 favor the Yankees, only a 1-run loss there for the Royals. You could argue that Jazz Chisholm, the go-ahead run, he should have been thrown out at second base. So like maybe that game goes to extras, and I'd say a lot of people would give the bullpen advantage to the Royals, although Luke Weaver and Clay Holmes pitched their tails off, I'd say, in that division series against the Royals. But they did even up the series in game 2. They get 4 runs off of Carlos Rodon, who was cruising in game 2, get 4 runs off of him in the top of the 4th, and the pitching would do enough. I mean, they only allowed the Yankees 2 runs in that second game. There was a pretty pivotal ground into double play by Giancarlo Stanton, which is not something that anybody should be surprised by, but it was definitely like a rally killing situation. The Yankees do get the better of the Royals in game 3, a late home run, a heroic home run by Giancarlo in this one, kind of redeeming himself from that moment in game
He
2.
had a great series.
Yeah, like ultimately he rose to the occasion when he needed to. I think Soto had a great series as well. Like there's definitely guys on the Yankees team that are kind of like coming into their own at the right time, or maybe not coming into their own, but like performing when they need to, right? Like you looked, we'll kind of get to it in the other division series that's already been finalized, but it wasn't singular efforts, I think, by either team. Like there was guys that were producing. I mean, it was mainly Bobby Witt for the Royals, but there were guys on the Yankees team, like on the offense, that were producing up and down the lineup, and it wasn't just the usual suspects. I mean, Judge didn't even have that great of a series ultimately. Not what you need out of him. Like he's not putting up Fernando Tatis Jr. numbers, but really no one else is either. So ultimately, I do agree with you. The better team does come out on top here, and I think getting this series done in 4 is, I mean, sure, you could have got it done in 3, but like best case scenario for the Yankees, they get extra time to kind of rest their pitching because Garrett Cole pitched a phenomenal game in game 4. They used him twice in this series. I think he'll get the ball in game 1 of the championship series as well, should there be enough rest in between. Like, I don't think it should go to Rodon. I don't think it should go to Clark Schmidt. Like, I think that ball belongs in Garrett Cole's hands again because he gives them the best chance to win night in and night out. With that being said, Colton, unless you have more to talk about the Yankees, I think
Well,
it's time.
I want to say, gosh, what is it? So game 1 of the championship series for the American League. I don't know why I'm not seeing it here. Uh,
Was it
October
like in
17th? No,
oh,
that doesn't sound right.
that's way too far away.
I don't know what this is. I don't know what I'm looking at here, but for the American League Championship Series, I honestly wouldn't be shocked
It's
if
Monday.
it's Monday. Okay, which is what, the 14th?
Yes.
So I would not be shocked if Rodon did get it in that game. We're
Sure.
sitting here on Thursday. I mean, so you'd have what, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off for Cole. So 3 days rest. He'd be going on basically his 4th day. I would think it'd probably go Rodon then Cole.
Okay.
In it's a 7-game series, so still has plenty of chances to pitch in this series. But you get Garrett Cole probably twice in that series either way.
Sure.
Rodon, you could, if you want to pitch him on short rest, you could maybe get him 3 times. If it goes 7, like, it'd be tough, but it's possible. So I don't necessarily know if I agree that Cole would go game 1, but it also, I think, depends on who they're playing and who they'll be facing in that game. Like, are you going to have Tarik Skubal on the mound or Tanner Bybee in that game? I think that might also change, and like what lineup you're going to be facing. So a lot of moving parts still. Obviously, we have a ways to go. But Joe, talk to me a little bit about this Phillies Mets series, because this was a series for the ages.
So like, dude, the Mets just know how to score when they're like backed up against the wall. Game 1, 5 runs in the top of the 8th inning after Zach Wheeler did his job. Bullpen implosion after bullpen implosion for the Phillies in this series. Not something I would have expected. I thought that Carlos Estevez, Jeff Hoffman, like Matt Strom, I didn't really mention Kirkering in our previous like conversations about, I guess, like team breakdown. He had a good year, but no one in this Phillies bullpen really lived up to the hype and shut it down in the moment when they needed to. And that game 1 loss, I think, kind of set the tone for the rest of this series kind of going forward, just based on like, okay, you can't win a game when your best guy goes 7 innings of shutout baseball. That's just a recipe for disaster. They did play kind of battle back in game 2 because they needed to. It was an all out brawl after the bullpens kind of entered the game there. The Mets score 1 in the top of the 6th. Phillies get 3 in the bottom of the 6th. Mets score again in the top of the 7th. Phillies get 3 in the bottom of the 8th. Mets score 2 in the top of the 9th. A Mark Vientos game tying home run, and then the Phillies walk it off in the bottom of the 9th. It was just back and forth, seesaw after just blow after blow, just going at it. Right, they're just going crazy, and then you get to the 3rd game, and the offense has gone quiet for the Phillies again. No runs, nothing until the 8th inning where they score 2, but they're already down 6 runs at that point. Like, it was all for naught, it felt like, for the majority of this series for the Phillies offense outside of Bryce Harper and Nicholas Castellanos. And sure, Schwarber had a big bomb against Senga, but like nothing else.
I honestly thought that game 2 was going to be the turning point for the Phillies. Like, obviously they were after the walk off from Castellanos. I thought, okay, now like they got the vibes going. Obviously they're going back to Citi Field in that scenario. Which, by the way, good for the Mets, dude. They have been on a roller coaster ride of just having to play in every city except for New York for the last like month, and they finally got to celebrate, and now they get to rest in their own city. Good for them. I really did think that the Phillies were going to have a comeback after game 2, but again, their offense after that put up 2 runs in game 3 and 1 run in game 4. Like, their offense was terrible. I believe they only scored like 11 or 12 runs, whereas the Mets scored, I think, 23 runs in this series. Like, game 3 specifically, I look at it, the Phillies just looked flat. And obviously, pitching performance, was it Luis Severino that game? Was that the Severino game that he pitched? Oh, Sean Manaea, that game.
Manaea went
And
crazy.
yeah, Sean Manaea was lights out. 7 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned, 2 walks, 6 Ks. Phil Maton came in, did give up 1 run here, and then our old friend Ryan Stanek got the save there in that game. But yeah, I mean, Aaron Nola gave up 4 runs in this game. Jose Alvarado had a rough game, giving up 2 runs in just 2/3 of an inning. And then with Game 4, Joe, it really did feel like Phillies all the way until Francisco Lindor comes up, bases loaded. Not the first time. He did it when he was with Cleveland against the Yankees in the division series way back when. He comes up and has a huge moment for the Mets when it kind of felt like things were starting to tip in their favor. You have Lindor coming up. I believe the Phillies brought in Estevez at that point with the bases loaded. And was it first pitch? I think it was. Of that at bat. Doesn't matter. It was the fact that, and the look on Lindor's face, it was like he didn't care because he knew that there was more work to be done before he could celebrate. And that was as ice in the veins of the New York Mets, because the Grimace Mets, let me tell you, the Hawk Tua Mets go crazy.
No. Oh, I'm so upset that the Hawk Tua Mets are becoming a thing. Yeah,
they have had a better record since Haley Wells threw out the first pitch than when Grimace threw out the first pitch. Just saying.
Just throwing it out there. Yeah, I'm looking at Jeff Hoffman's ERA. 40.5.
Wow.
Just the lights were too bright. He could not get the job done. And I mentioned the Phillies offense outside of Harper and Castellanos, like Bohm literally got benched in this series because he just wasn't present enough. Like there's obvious gaps in many teams. Like I don't think there's a single team in this postseason that is like perfectly well-rounded on either side of the ball. Like, sure, you could say that the Padres lineup top to bottom might be, the one that you're going to contend with the most. You could also say that maybe about the Dodgers, but you look at the Dodgers pitching, broken. It just in shambles. The Padres pitching, it's not perfect either. Like this Phillies team, you looked at what they done. So like, obviously 2022 World Series against the Astros, they lose. 2023, maybe they'd have it again, but they lose in the championship series to the Diamondbacks. The fact that they've gone backwards in 2 years in a row in the playoffs makes me think that, one, maybe Rob Thompson's done. Like maybe this is like the turning point of like they need some sort of change in management or some sort of change in personnel, or they need to kind of retool with where they're at outside of their star players. You're going to continue to rock with Harper, Turner. I think Realmuto's still definitely kicking it back there behind the dish. I think Schwarber and Castellanos honestly are doing enough, but the role players, the guys in between the margins, they might need to shake it up there. I don't think it's like Stott, but like Bohm is definitely a guy that I could see getting moved this offseason just because he's not doing enough. He's not pushing the needle enough. And a team that's going to be contending for a World Series year in and year out, like the Phillies want to be, like the ownership literally wills them to be, you need more out of the guys that aren't your star players, because you look at the Mets, Jose Iglesias, the OMG Mets. You're getting big time hits, big time run scoring opportunities out of Jose Iglesias. Starling Marte is not the player that he used to be, but he's still coming up big. Jesse Winker hit a home run to the second deck. It's the guys that aren't necessarily your standout stars that are making the differences in the series so far. And I think that's precisely why the Mets took down the Phillies in 4 in this one.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about the Phillies, because at the same time, Game 4, like Edwin Diaz on the mound, the tying run was at the plate and Schwarber. And like if anybody is going to hit a game tying home run at that moment, it was the guy at the plate and Kyle Schwarber. Ends up striking out against like a 102-mile-an-hour fastball from Electric Eddie D. But it was like that moment, like I really did think that the Phillies were going to come back right there, because that's how the whole series had been. And so is this a moment, like you said, where the Phillies look in the mirror and they say, okay, it's time for us to make a change. And maybe it is moving on from Alec Bohm. You and I have had discussions about them possibly trying to sign Alex Bregman this offseason. Like, I feel like that's a fit that makes sense. If he's going to thrive anywhere, it's in Citibank, Citizens Bank, not Citibank, Citizens Bank, where the fans are raucous. They're one of the best like atmospheres in baseball. And he's already going to get booed. It doesn't matter. So
yeah,
but
he's
like, or they go with Edmundo Sosa over there at third base. It'll be interesting to see what they want to do, because we know that the owner for the Philadelphia Phillies, he doesn't want to cut payroll. Like, he wants to get his trophy back, like he said. And so are they willing to go out there and sign somebody Alex Bregman? I'm not sure. But Joe, we have to talk now about the teams that may be going to face these teams. Let's start in the American League. Actually, no. Let's start in the National League because that's the game that gets played first.
Sure.
Padres Dodgers. It's already been announced that Yu Darvish will be starting for the Padres. He was great, and I think game 2
was game 2.
Was it game 2 after Cease? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
He was great in that game. For the Dodgers, it has not been announced yet. It'll either be Yoshinobu Yamamoto or Jack Flaherty. I'm personally leaning towards Yamamoto, but having Jack Flaherty in the pen would be big for them as well.
Yeah, it's a situation where you can piggyback like either one with the other one in that situation. You can go start Yamamoto if you like him kind of changing up speeds early on in the game, changing up looks, and then going to Flaherty later on for, 3-4 innings out of either of them. If you can get them to be stable in like as a mound presence, because Flaherty, he was doing okay and then kind of got hit around a little bit in game 2. That was the big kind of offensive explosion by the Padres that caused some Dodgers fans to do some not so chill things. Please, in game 5, don't throw stuff on the field. All 0 Dodger fans that will listen to this.
Yeah, they're returning to Dodger Stadium,
right?
5, so
it's going to be in an app like Friday night electric baseball, dude. Like that is going to be peak postseason baseball. Should it be a close game? And if it's a blowout, I'll be a little bit upset. I want it to be a nail biter from start to finish. I like how the kind of series has progressed. It was like a back and forth game in game 1, a blowout in game 2, back and forth in game 3, and then a blowout in game 4. What will we see out of like who will rise to the occasion in game 5? I think the Padres having Darvish on the mound to start, that provides them a lot of stability and a lot of pedigree as far as just being a guy on the mound that will have a great sense of presence and be able to kind of hold down the fort should the offense maybe not be giving him enough run support to kind of start out the game there. But if it's Yamamoto, because he got pulled early, the Padres were seeing him well. I think gave up, was it 6 runs in 3 innings in his first start? Like in that game 1 start. Yeah. So it wasn't necessarily pretty. It was 5 runs. So the Padres had scored 5 in those first 3 innings. So the issue is either side that they go to, like it wasn't pretty for either Yamamoto or Flaherty for the Dodgers. They've had the most success going to their bullpen. They won a literal bullpen game, something that we kind of mocked like in passing of like, why would they do that in game 4? Are they trying to lose? And then they did not allow a single run in a bullpen game in that game 4. So maybe Dave Roberts knows what he's cooking up. Notably very angry Dodgers fans at Dave Roberts a lot in the postseason. I'll be curious to see how that does go. What are you looking forward to most out of this game 5 on Friday?
The energy is just going to be insane. I think that's the thing I look forward to the most. Obviously, everybody's going to be high on emotion. You're going to have Tatis, like the first guy that hits a home run is going to pimp the hell out of it.
They're going to spike the bat and it's going to shatter into a million pieces because the force that they throw the bat with.
Yeah, I think it is actually possible if they do go with a bullpen game again. It's also possible. It'd be kind of lame, but it's possible. I mean, if it works, who cares, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, I would like to see it be Yu Darvish and Yamamoto. I think that'd be fun. Mm-hmm. Obviously, 2 countrymen, guys that have, I believe, played they might have played together. I can't remember, or it was Darvish left right before Yamamoto came up. But nonetheless, be a lot of fun there. I look to if Freddie Freeman's healthy, like. I think he's a big factor in this series. Is he healthy enough to go over there and play first base? Because he was scratched from game 4.
Mm-hmm.
Miguel Rojas is another guy who came up lame in game 4 as well. Another guy that was taken out. It'll be interesting to see kind of where the health is with the Dodgers. I don't honestly know if they have the longevity to get through this game. Even if they do, let's say the Dodgers do end up winning game 5. How do they look in the championship series? Because it feels like they're running on fumes right now. Personally, I look to the Padres to be able to capitalize on that. The Padres have the deeper pitching, in my opinion. The Padres, the way it's looked, have the better lineup as well. Especially if Freeman's out. Especially if Miguel Rojas is out. Like I think that I look to this series or this game 5 as the pinnacle of what could be the end to a very, very fun division series. Like this has probably been the most fun I've had watching the National League division series in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I mean, I'm kind of bummed that it's going to be over, to be honest with you. Like,
Yeah.
I very much enjoyed this. It's not going to be the same watching either the Padres or the Dodgers go play the Mets. But moving on now to the American League Division Series, Joe, here we have the Detroit Tigers and the Cleveland Guardians. Tarik Skubal will be on the mound for the Tigers. I don't think it's been announced who's going to be on the mound for the Guardians yet. Tanner Bybee obviously pitched in Game 4. So do they go like you and I talked about before this? Do they go Matthew Boyd, have a rematch of those guys? Where's your head kind of at with that game?
It's another one where you're looking at, I think, both teams without the announced starter. They could do whatever the hell they want because they need to win the game no matter what. They just don't have a clear-cut answer to what that is. The Padres, they do. Yu Darvish. The Tigers, obviously they do. They have the American League Cy Young winner in Tarik Skubal. Like there's an obvious choice for both those teams. For the Guardians in this situation, there really isn't one. They don't have a secondary ace or secondary guy behind Tanner Bybee that I think that they want to depend on. Boyd pitched well against opposite Skubal in that second game. I think it's probably going to be him with basically anybody who can throw a baseball behind him ready to go. Because if you are going back to Cleveland against your division rival Tigers, a team that a lot of people would say should not be here as far as their development. Like this is a team that like a lot of people are like clowning the Mets on Twitter saying like, "Oh, the Cinderella run Mets with their $300 million payroll." But like honestly, it's 180 of active payroll because like weird trades like Scherzer and Verlander like owing money there and stuff. So like I give them a little bit of a concession. But the true Cinderella run is on the American League side. It is the Detroit Tigers, right?
False.
You're lying to yourself.
The Cinderella run was the Royals.
You're incorrect.
Interesting.
Will Smith did not do enough for the Royals voodoo magic to allow them to make it to another World Series. A Will Smith team to make it to the World Series. If you're saying that the Tigers are not the Cinderella run as they literally willed themselves into the playoffs with a 34-19 record over the last 2 months of the season, had a less than 1% chance to make the postseason at some point in August, and then made the postseason, that's as Cinderella run as you get, dog.
What was the Royals' percent chance at the beginning of the season? Bet you it was lower than the Tigers.
I wholeheartedly disagree.
You think so? The
Oh, yeah.
56 and 106 Royals, you think had a higher percentage chance than the Tigers?
After signing Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha in the offseason, yes.
This will be an interesting debate topic.
I think we can revisit that soon. But the Guardians, what they need to do is they just need to score runs. Because Game 1, they scored 7, held the Tigers scoreless. Games 2 and 3, I mean, from the 6th inning of the first game until the first inning of Game 4, they were scoreless. You can't have that. Yeah, like, not fun to watch.
It was not exciting for a team that has Jose Ramirez, one of the catalysts, honestly, most underrated player in baseball. Like Jose Ramirez. Dude almost had a 40-40 season this year, and nobody knew about it.
Only because Judge was chasing maybe 60 again, and Ohtani was going 50-50. Literally the most under the radar potential 40-40 season in recent memory. The challenges. The Tigers have their ace in the hole. They have every bit of leverage that they need going into a Game 5 where the series was in the palm of their hand. They were winning, and they unfortunately let Game 4 get away in Detroit. Going back to Cleveland, I don't think there's a better pitcher that can pitch in a hostile environment in a must-win situation than Tarik Skubal. Like, he is going to go out there and give you 7 innings of the most competitive at-bats from a pitcher standpoint. Like, he will make it a living hell in that batter's box for every single Guardians batter that he can. Without a doubt, it's going to take a massive swing from a Jose Ramirez, a Josh Naylor, maybe Lane Thomas comes up big. It's going to take some sort of like miracle type home run, similar to Kerry Carpenter's against Emmanuel Clase. It's going to take a situation like that for the Guardians, I think, to come through. What needs to happen for them is they need to score late. They got a run in the top of the 9th. They got 2 runs in the top of the 7th in Game 4, right? They need to do that. They need to score late because it's not that the Tigers bullpen's bad, because obviously AJ Hinch has he's put on a masterclass this postseason of when to deploy certain guys at the right time. It's been good. I'd say 90% of the times that he has put out a pitcher there, they need to somehow capitalize on a mistake if one is made. I mean, you look at Jackson Jobe, he pitched in game 4. If he goes out there again in game 5, like, that's going to be one where on Saturday, because there's a day off because of travel, like if Jobe sees the mound, Stephen Vogt has to like rally his guys and be like, you've seen him before. You know that this guy is young. Get him rattled and score some runs off of him.
I think that the big difference in a series like this is the off days. Because normally, what I would say here is, hey, go out there, see as many pitches as you can from Tarik Skubal, and get him out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like put up competitive at bats, do your best to get him out of the game in like the 4th or the 5th inning. Because the Tigers bullpen should be exhausted, especially having to pitch bullpen games and whatnot. Like they have been so overused, it's unbelievable. It'll be interesting to see like how this plays out the rest of the way if they do happen to win this game. Very similar to, I feel like, the Dodgers, a team that their bullpen's probably exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see, because I don't know if we've ever seen a team go into like the World Series and win it with so little starting pitching and having guys go literally every single day. Like we may see that if it's all of a sudden the Tigers versus the Dodgers. Both teams could be doing something like that. I look to the fact that with the Tigers, they have, the guys like Kerry Carpenter. Obviously, they're making what, $19 million total in the payroll of that team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is unbelievable the amount of money that they are paying those guys, and each role player is stepping up and playing a role for that team. And it's not one guy every single night. Like they don't have Jose Ramirez. Like they don't have Emmanuel Clase at the back end of their bullpen. Like they don't have the stars other than Tarik Skubal, of course. But what they have is friendship.
The power of friendship, literally.
Power of friendship, like, is what is willing the Detroit Tigers to basically go out there day in and day out and compete with these teams that are way above their pay grade, honestly, way above their talent level, in my opinion. I look to the Cleveland Guardians. Can they put a stop to this? Because whoever they have start, whether that be Matthew Boyd or whatever, they have. I assume that you see all 4 of those guys with ERA pluses over 200
Mm-hmm.
in Game 5. You have to use them. Like, if I don't care what's going on, if the game is tight and you have bases loaded with 1 out, you bring in Emmanuel Clase in the 5th.
It's a must-win situation. You have to turn to your strength in Clase, Gaddis, Smith, Heron. One of those 4 has to come in and get out of a jam if it's the 5th inning, just because you can't let that lead get away at any point during that series during that game, because if you give Skubal a lead, he's not going to give it up very easily.
So who do you have? Who you got? You got the Tigers?
My team to go to the World Series on the American League side is the Guardians. So I'm going to stick to my guns. Even in a Skubal Game 5 situation, I will say that the Guardians advance. I think they're the more polished roster. I think they're the more experienced roster. I don't want to say better coach, because AJ Hinch is, like I said, he's done a masterful job this postseason. But I think the time will end for the Tigers, and I think the Guardians will advance to face the Yankees in the championship series.
Do you think that's the better matchup? Like if you are thinking about the matchups for the Yankees, like which team do you think favors the Yankees better? Who do you think the Yankees would rather play? Do you think they'd rather play the Guardians? Or do you think they'd rather play the Tigers? Because I think both teams have their assets and both teams have weaknesses. Which one do you think the Yankees could exploit better?
So I think as far as what the Yankees would rather face, I don't know if it's like the power of friendship is like actually that scary, because you see what the Tigers have done. They have won games that they should have lost so many times during this postseason. No sound baseball team hits a bases clearing double off of Josh Hader in Minute Maid Park. Like, that's not something teams do very often. The Tigers are pulling miracles out of their hats pretty much at like every single opportunity that they can, or more often than not. That's a team that you don't want to play. And looking at how the regular season went between all 3 of these teams, like Yankees versus the Guardians, Yankees versus the Yankees won both these season series in favor of 4-2 in games. They only outscored the Tigers by 4, 17-13. They outscored the Guardians 37-22. They outscored that team by 15 runs somehow, some way. If it was a big blow-up start by Tristan McKenzie, if there was a big, like, bad Gavin Williams start when he was coming back from the injured list, I'm not sure exactly what the, like, box scores fully look like for a lot of those games, but I think you look at those score lines, and it's hard to say, like, it's hard to not pick the Yankees would rather face the Guardians, just based around how the season series went and how the Tigers continuously win in situations where they shouldn't.
I think I wholeheartedly agree, and it's because the Detroit Tigers are so unpredictable. You never know what AJ Hinch is going to do. It's literally like they've described it as chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And us as Mariners fans know chaos ball very well. And that's what we've seen from the Detroit Tigers throughout the entirety of this postseason so far. Whereas when you look at the Guardians, it's a team that is understandable. You know, they're probably gonna, once they get a lead in like the 6th or 7th inning, they're gonna go to that death bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
You know what they're gonna do. You can't game plan versus the Tigers because I don't even think they know what they're gonna do. AJ Hinch just pulls a bingo number out and says this one, and
You're
it's
up.
like, and it works because he knows, like you said, some sort of voodoo magic. So I would agree. I think that the Guardians would be the right team for the Yankees, that the Yankees would want to face. I'm not sure who wins that series because honestly, I kind of like the Guardians in that series. But I think that the Tigers are, like you said, just a team that nobody wants to play. On the National League side of things, this one's a little bit more interesting, Joe, because there are the season series are not so cut and dry. One of these teams, there's a pretty big discrepancy. Tell me about it.
So the Mets versus the Dodgers in the regular season, we see the 2-4 score line go in favor of the Dodgers here, right? So the Dodgers won that series 4-2. Similarly, outscoring the Mets by 16 runs, similar to how the Yankees outscored the Guardians by, 15. So the Dodgers had the Mets number for whatever reason in 2024 in the regular season. And then you go down to the Padres. Played 7 games, the Mets did, against those San Diego dads. They won 5 of those games. A buzzsaw Padres team that I would say, I think they're the last team I would want to face in this postseason. Honest to God, like ranking the teams that are still in it right now, I think the Padres at the top of my list of the teams I don't want to face, just based around on how much fire they play with night in and night out. The New York Grimace Mets, not the Haley Welch Mets, not the Hawk Tua Mets, all right? Went 5-2 against the Padres in the regular season, outscoring them by 13 runs. I still think that the more favorable matchup here is the Dodgers, which is like blasphemous to say given Mookie Betts knows how to hit baseballs this postseason, and Shohei Ohtani is, he's having a pretty good, I'd say, first playoff run. Like, it's not something that you're never going to ever see again, but like, he's doing all right. I think you really look to the injuries for the Dodgers that are holding them back. Like you mentioned, Freddie Freeman. I mean, Miguel Rojas, I'm not going to sit here and say like Miguel Rojas is comparable to Freddie Freeman as far as injury concern is, whatever, but I look at the final game for the Padres Dodgers and looking forward to like what it means for the Mets. I think you want the Dodgers to play the Mets if you want the Mets to go to the World Series, because I think that there's a better chance that they can capitalize on a banged up Dodgers team than on a absolutely fired up Padres team should they go into Los Angeles and take the division series, move on to the championship series. They know what they missed out in 2022 when they lost to the Phillies. They missed the playoffs in 2023. Fernando Tatis Jr. might bat 1,000 in the championship series if he gets there.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said. I think that the Dodgers, because of the injuries, are the more beatable team. They're the team that's more flawed. They're the team that you can take advantage of more. Whereas the Padres are still so well rounded. Certainly there are guys that are underperforming, but Tatis has been probably the best performer in the entirety of the playoffs so far. Like, Manny Machado's performed pretty well. Jurickson Profar's had his moments. Like, there is not really... it's tough to say that I would rather have the Padres lineup than the Dodgers lineup, because when you look at it on paper, that's just asinine. Mm-hmm. But if Freddie can't go, like, that's a big... All of a sudden, you have Chris Taylor playing. Max Muncy's over there at first base. Like, there's a lot of moving parts for the Dodgers, and it's something they just have to try to work through with the roster that they have right now, because everybody's freaking hurt. If all things the same, everyone's healthy, the Dodgers. I would not want to play the Dodgers.
Clean sweep.
Yeah, you got Tyler Glass now, Clayton Kershaw. What is the playoffs?
Yeah.
Clayton Kershaw, Freddie, obviously over there. Like, I wouldn't want to play the Dodgers, but because of the injuries, I think that if I'm the Mets, I would like to see LA win that game. There's a chance, Joe, that we see our first Subway Series World Series between the Yankees and the Mets since 2000. It's only happened once when the Yankees beat the Mets in the 2000 World Series. So that's something that I think would be very interesting as we get here into the championship series. But unfortunately, we are done with the whole 4 games in one day thing.
Yeah.
I very much enjoyed that. We're kind of getting down to the point where it's going to be two, almost like a couple times, and then one game every single day, which is kind of a bummer. It's kind of bittersweet because these playoffs have been really, really fun.
Yeah, I'm going to look back on this postseason very fondly, even though the Mariners did not get to participate in it. And maybe I'm glad that they aren't, because if they did, I don't know if my sweet little heart could take it. But you look at where the championship series kind of line up. The National League Championship Series starts on Sunday, goes to Monday, then they have a day off Tuesday. American League Championship Series starts on Monday, goes to Tuesday, have a day off Wednesday. So I don't know what I want to be the final kind of matchups here. But regardless, I just hope that these 7 game sets bring as much excitement as the 5 game sets have in the division series.
I just hope they go all 7. That's all I care about. Like I did, it's fun to not have a rooting interest because just go baseball. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? That's my favorite thing. But thank you guys so much for watching episode 3 of the MLB Mojo podcast, and go baseball, Joe.
Go baseball.